Hi, everyone. Today I want to talk about your stay at home strategy. The government, CDC, healthcare professionals, they've told us what to do. They've told us to isolate, everything, and we need to do everything that they tell us to do. What I want to talk about is taking that information, looking at your own particular situation, and then developing a strategy that works for you, that keeps you and your family the most safe. Stay at home. Think about it this way. In the curve, we have the fast curve. That is the virus spreads quickly. A lot of people get infected very quickly. Um, it levels off when it runs out of people to infect, then it goes away. And the problem with that curve is people that are critically ill, there'll be too many of them for the hospitals to treat. So we've been talking about the flattened curve. Is by separating, we can slow down how quickly the virus spreads so that we don't exceed, ideally, we never exceed that amount of critical patients that the hospital can care for. So in separating, if you think about it, ideally, every individual person in the country would be in their own home, their own apartment, separate from everyone else. Um, Obviously, that's not practical. We have families. And so, what we've done really is created our own little clusters, if you will, our own little communities, or I'll use an analogy, our own little countries, if you will. So, it may be one of you, it may be two of you, it may be in my house, we have 10. We have four generations of people in my house, including my father, who's 80 years old and not in good health, and my grandsons. So we go from top to bottom. We have a large home. We're a little community here. And so that has forced me to think about this in a different way, maybe, than what a lot of people have to think about it. So when I say we're like little communities, we separate off into our own little clusters. And if the virus infects one of those clusters, it may spread, and it will spread rapidly, and hopefully no one gets critically ill and it goes away rapidly. Boom. But while the virus is there, it's not, you don't want it to go into other people's families, into other people's clusters. So essentially, each one of us has to adopt this mindset that our family, our household, is like our own country, and we're sealing the borders. We don't want anyone coming in, and we ideally don't want anyone to go out. We're going to stay where we are until this thing, goes away. So there's a threat, there's a risk, and each one of us we have to seal our borders. So you may find yourself questioning whether this is good or that's good. If you think about it that way, it might help. Now, because of our situation, and because I do home improvements, I have some of the N95 breathing masks, and some people are donating those, and I think that's noble, that's awesome, that's wonderful. That the healthcare workers would have those who really need them the most, because they're working around the patients and they need them, and most people out here don't. But in my situation, I have a large household. Like I said, I have a small community of our own. So we've limited how many people can go out to the stores. There's two of us. We wear masks, we have gloves, we have hand sanitizer that we're rationing. So when we go out to the store, we only do it as much as necessary. Now, luckily, most people that work are able to stay and work from home. We have one exception to that, but everyone else is working at home. So every time someone leaves, that's sort of a piercing of the veil, if you will. It's sort of a leak, in our security, where potentially someone could bring the virus back and spread, and worst of all, to my father. So that's how we're looking at it, and that's why, if you see me out at the store, I have a mask, I have gloves on. I'm doing my best to stay 6 foot away from everyone. Very difficult to do in a grocery store. If you've been there, it's very, very difficult to do. So we've closed restaurants, we've closed bars, we've closed movie theaters, concert events, anywhere we have large gatherings of people, because we don't want the virus to spread. But grocery stores are not safe. Grocery stores are places just like the bars and the restaurants where large amounts of people come together. The only reason they're not closed is because they're essential. We have to eat. So, it's not just about, there's a bit of an argument going on, and I may do a video about whether the economists versus the medical community, this and that. You see that tension right there in the fact that we have grocery stores open. Now there are places you can go where they'll bring the groceries out to you. Maybe there's places where you can have it delivered. If you're a high risk person, and you can have someone in your family or someone to bring your groceries and drop them off for you, you can do that. But anyway, think in terms of these clusters. Your family, your group, you're like your own little neighborhood, your own little country. You need to steal it off. You need to protect everyone. And when you go out, that's where you're potentially exposed. You bring it back. And again, the area where I live, it's good. We've got a small amount of infections. It is growing. So we're not out of the woods. Contrast that with some of the very, very alarming firsthand accounts we get from people working in hospitals in Michigan and in New York. Big difference there. They're both true. Okay. You can't say one is true and the other isn't. They're both true. But the best that we know now, the things that we're doing to stay isolated, to protect ourselves, that's going to prevent us from getting to where the hotspots are. So that's it. That's all I have today. Be blessed. Talk to you soon.